Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming today. Um, I probably shouldn't have scheduled it on a holiday weekend, but I wasn't really thinking. Every day seems like Sunday now. Today, we're going to have Mr. Ryan Monro coming to us from Vancouver, British Columbia. Um, Anybody that's a Dolly grip probably knows of his work. Again, he's does all of Chris Nolan stuff. Did The Revenant. Has traveled all over. We were just talking about Extraction in Thailand, and he's a veteran Dolly grip, and everybody that I know that knows him to be also a really good guy. So let's hear what he has to say, and Daryl, take over. Thanks.
Thanks, sir.
Ryan Monro, clearly a man at the top of this game. Ryan, Tenet, Extraction, Ad Astra, Dunkirk, so you got a great list. I think probably, and we said this earlier, the thing people are going to want to hear most about, I would imagine, and we said you're probably not going to talk too much about Tenet because it's not out yet, and I wouldn't believe it.
That might be a good idea, right, Keith? Or Keith can talk about Tenet.
Exactly what happens, either Keith or right now. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people are probably interested in Revenant, which looked like just a terrible. I remember watching that movie and thinking, "Thank God I didn't get called for that." What do you remember about the Revenant a while back?
Well, it was about 6 years ago, and I actually had a kind of a warm-up movie for it a few years before that, because I accepted a job called Wind Chill, which was in the winter in Canada on the top of a mountain, and it was nights for 5 weeks. So when it was 25 below most days, that kind of got me climatized for The Revenant. But basically, The Revenant, Ray Garcia was the key, who he knew of me because we'd both done 2 Nolan movies. I was the key grip, camera grip, in all the foreign countries, and Ray was the key grip in the States. And they didn't bring me to the States then because of work permit issues. But Ray gave me a ring and hired me for it. So we started in the summer, and basically they wanted to just rehearse everything for weeks. Mainly 1 shot a day was the plan on most days. So we would rehearse all day, and then when the light was right, when it just went down below the mountain, then we'd shoot. So we rehearsed every scene in the summer. We did a mock-up in the studio in Vancouver first off to try to figure out how to do some of it, and then basically I flew out to Calgary in September, and we did a few weeks, and we just basically rehearsed pretty much every scene, which most of it was handheld. A lot of it was handheld, with Chivo operating. And we had the Alexa M, which was like the mini, but with the umbilical cable to the backpack, which I carried. So for most of the rehearsals, I was just holding on to his ass with the backpack, and then because we couldn't rehearse a lot of the crane shots because we had to get them into location, and it wasn't. We were in the woods most of the time, but we couldn't you can't just roll it in there. Like whoever took them to do the scouting was like a mountaineer, because we'd walk sometimes 15 minutes into the woods to find the location. So that's where the crane had to be. So we generally went and scouted things, and then planned it out. We planned out as much as we could, and the shots that we could beforehand, but some of it was kind of on the day. And once we got the crane into position, we would maybe even have a rehearsal day doing it. But yeah, so it was either handheld or else Scott Sakamoto on a Steadicam. And then when you couldn't do it handheld, if it was going over top or it was too much of a 360, then it was the crane. And luckily for me, the director hated cranes. So it didn't start off that great. He wanted everything handheld. He was, because he explained it to me at the end of the movie that how he started in Mexico as a young man. He had this vision and he wanted to make movies, and he didn't have any money. So he just had a camera, and the only way to do it was handheld. So he'd run around. He did all his movies handheld for many years. And so he just did not want to do it on a crane because he thinks it takes you away from the actors. What did he say? He said to me, as I was doing the shot, he stopped. He said, "It's not a commercial. It's not a diaper commercial. You have to get close to his face to feel his emotions." I'm like, okay, it's not a diaper commercial. Okay. And that was my first lesson. So it started off pretty warm in the summer, a big battle. It was a lot of handheld stuff. And then Scott Sakamoto did, I think it was in the first shot in the movie, was through the water walking around. It looks like a crane shot. People think it's a crane shot because it's so smooth, but it was him walking in hip waders through and around everything, and artistic wonder. Somehow he walked through the water with stumps and roots of trees underneath, and just, he's amazing, Scott. I mean,
He really
whoever's kind of know that. But then when it was my turn for a shot, it would be basically Chivo had the M, I'm with the backpack. We would go through it, and it could be a 1 to 5 minute long shot with him artistically, creatively turning the camera every which way. And then after he was finished, then I'd have to do it on the crane, which is with a headset with a lot of guidance, and like a lot of critique and a lot of good guidance. So that was basically the challenge. We would go through it in the morning with him doing that, and then we would have the crane. And obviously, if you're doing a dozen different direction changes on the pickle, and 15 different arm swings at critical time, you can't have two people operating it. You've tried to do that, doing wraparounds, and one guy's on the button. You don't know when he's going to start or when he's going to stop. So we had some bad luck at the beginning, and then basically I started doing it all from the front, which I'd done before. When I always liked, with fixed arm cranes when I was younger, I would always build like handlebars near the front of the crane, so I could operate from the front, and then when up high, I could still sort of grab it and swing it around that way. So it kind of, which you can't really do on technos because it just works differently. So with the lenses we were using, we were like, these wide things, and we had to be this close all the time. So up front, basically, I made a little bracket, or Matt, or Best Boy, made a bracket for me, and I mounted a monopod to the front at an angle so that I could just come down right behind the Libra, and then I'd wrap the pickle cable around my arm. So I had that in this hand, and I had my little monopod, so I could basically carve anywhere, as long as my finger didn't get too cold because it was freezing. But so that was the way that we would do it. Chivo would do it all with the handheld, and then I would have to try to figure out how to do it. And a lot of them were almost like 360s, almost seeing the crane base. So on one of them, we actually had the crane on track behind so that we could start one way, and then I could do the 360, but then to compound things more, we had to move the base, 4 lengths of track one way, which obviously is screwing up my ability to operate the arm. But basically, that's the way we did it.
Yeah, that's interesting what you brought up. And I think a lot of dolly grips do this. I know I was the same way on fixed length cranes or modular cranes. I always wanted to be as close to the camera as I could, so I tried to always do them from the front, fling it, have somebody catch the bucket or whatever. Tried to do the same thing on Technicranes. The first time I worked with one, I was like, okay, and it realized really quickly, unless you're walking around with it, it just doesn't, it just drags you all over the set, basically. So it's kind of hard when you first it's kind of hard. I know when you're starting out, when you make that switch, it's kind of hard to let that go, to realize, okay, I'm just going to be on the back. I'm going to be 60 feet away from it or whatever, you know. So I think it's kind of hard to make that transition in your head if you're a dolly gripper and you're used to being really close to the camera, because you think you can get the best, you know.
Absolutely. And I mean, the way I like to work is I like to be usually on the bucket, because our company in Vancouver wouldn't actually give the dolly grip the button, which is different in the rest of the world.
David Ehrlichman explained that to me.
Yeah. Yeah. But with my great guy, you know, Ian, we get him on, I have this axis and he has this axis, and we can do it all together because we know each other so well.
Right.
But it's that when Ian's not there, and then they put the guy, you know, that was a bartender 3 months ago, and the owner of the crane company, Wes knows what I'm talking about. So it gets a little difficult. So I would always try to think of different methods and of how to, with all the different equipment that we use, I always wanted it to be as precise as the dolly. Because I love the dolly because it's you doing it. It's your body weight. You can feel it. And that's the way we started, you know, because I did it for 10 years or whatever, before 8 years before they even had technos. So we were kind of used to it that way. Yeah, techno was completely different then. But I found that system worked on Revenant. I've actually used it on other movies, but it's just so difficult to set up because basically what I do, I tried to mount monitors everywhere, but I ended up just mounting it onto my chest on a backpack sort of at the side. And then so I had an umbilical cord with a BNC and a power cable that ran to the base. And then I'd keep the pickle loom free so I could just run around. Basically with the monopod thing, I mean, it gets you right behind the camera. But when it's 360s, it's kind of, you get off so you can't have your head behind the lens to see exactly where you are. And when you're in overs and wide lenses like that, you're dealing with, you know, millimeters. So when it would get out there at last resort, I would just look at my little TV on my chest and sort of go that way until I could come back into just standing behind the camera and just seeing it through the back of the lens.
I know Canadians are used to dealing with sub-zero temperatures. What are some things that you have to do to make sure your equipment works in the next morning? You know what I mean? After it sits in freezing cold all night.
The cranes, they would basically, they would put a big tarp over it and just get space heaters and just keep them running, basically. I think that's what they did on the Revenant most of the time. Just trying to keep it as warm that way, just keep it. We didn't really have any problems. We had a Movie Bird, everybody's favorite, that 35-45. And then we had the great one was the Scorpio 23. So in the tight locations, because wherever we had, most of the locations were in the trees, so we'd have to use the 23 to get him in there. Like Ray had Matt Floyd, the rigger. He set up long lines, like towers and long lines, and they long lined the cranes in there. And I think they worked on some of them like 2 weeks, a crew of riggers, 2 weeks just to get the crane in to the one position. We do one shot, and then it was a strike. So they were busy trying to get this massive equipment in there. I mean, we had the 73-foot hydroscope on the Ultra Maverick base, and they got the biggest crane in the world and lifted it off down a bank, over a river, into position for one shot. And it's a long way from LA to bring that thing up, so it was for one shot, and we were always, you know, doing it at sort of magic hour. So these massively orchestrated shots, it wasn't just difficult for me and whoever's on the wheels. Like it was Scott, sometimes it was Chivo on the wheels, sometimes it would be Scott. And I mean, with all the crazy stuff that I'm doing with the crane, you know what it must be like for an operator who's not there to try to follow the puck. So, and then of course the actors, they're laying down on freezing ground. And the effects guys had to do smoke in all of it. So we didn't get many takes. So one part, it was amazing because I had one shot to do, so I could just practice it all day. And I sat there all day, you know, figuring out how I was going to put my foot here and how I'm going to step over here and how I'm going to change my finger to change the directions. But then it gave you a little bit too much time to think about it. Yes. And you started realizing, shit, we got maybe 3 takes when we do this, when the sun goes down, and every take it's going to be a different light. And Chivo wants the perfect light. So of the, you know, 30 different moves of the crane, you just can't screw anything up. And, you know, if you stumble, you've screwed up. If your finger slips up, you've screwed up. And it's freezing. We're out there in the cold, and sometimes they're blowing snow on us and all sorts of shit. So the pressure was on, but it was such a blast, really. It was amazing.
I was thinking, yeah, you got all day to practice it 30 times. So really kind of goes against you when it comes to time. So you had all day to do it.
When it came down to it was, I would always remember, I would think about what my skydiving instructor taught me years ago. Because it's one of those things too, where it's so fucking cool, but all day you're getting ready to jump out of the plane. But then when it actually happens, you're scared shitless. You think, I'm a fucking idiot. What am I doing? How am I going to jump out of a plane? So he said, when you're in the plane, you start to get nervous. You just run through it like a few times in your head, then stop. Just relax, stay super cool. Just before you go to do it again, run through it one more time, and then you're ready. Just so you don't sort of mind fuck yourself.
Exactly. I always tell people if they knew how stupid I really am, they would never let me touch this $1 million crane. Swing.
I had the same feelings about myself.
Yeah. And having worked with, I've worked with Scotty Sakamoto, who I love dearly. And I know Scotty tends to give you little micro instructions as you're doing it, you know, here and there. And you got to kind of let go of your, you know, just realize. I talked to somebody who'd worked with him before and said, this is what Scott does. And he doesn't mean it. It's just his way. So you got to kind of come into it. You come into it knowing and go, okay, you just, you know, you don't get your feathers ruffled because he's constantly giving you little things.
Yeah, you got to let that go. Yeah. I mean, I didn't have obviously we actually didn't even have any dollies on the show. No dollies. It was just the 2 cranes. So they were never in front of me. But like I said, with the headset, there was a lot of instructions from a certain guy telling me everything to do all the time and really critiquing how well I was doing, which was kind of a little unnerving sometimes because I knew I still had 3 more minutes to go, and if you didn't think it was so great in the first 10 seconds, it made for a long shot.
Yeah, been there. That's awesome. So tell me about, I know you've done a lot of work with Chris Nolan. What's he like? How's that situation set up?
Chris is amazing. He's, I mean, you look at his movies, you get it, you know. Well, sometimes you don't get the movies because you don't really understand them, but you understand how great they are. It's been great for me. I mean, I'm Canadian, so we don't travel very often. All the jobs that come here are basically people that, you know, want to save money because of the dollar and whatnot. And sometimes it's because of the locations, you know, the trees and stuff. So it was many years of TV and different things, and then finally got up to features, and I did Insomnia with him, which was the first one. I think that was Chris's, it was his second movie. He was young. We were the same age, but Wally Pfister was about 10 years older than us, so he was Chris's, you know, old pro. So they came in, and I thought it was great because I knew I kind of had a sense of it. It was Al Pacino and, you know, these big actors, so I was pretty jacked up about it. And Chris, he didn't like Steadicam, so I was like, okay, so this is where I can, you know, I can shine. I can do a good job because much like Mango's buddy, who he works with, they try to make every Steadicam shot a dolly shot. So with the DP operating, he was always focused on the lighting. So I got to set up whatever dance floor I wanted and track, and then sort of figure out how the operator would actually operate it. And then he'd just jump on at the last second. And so I got to say, put your foot here because you're going to do this. So we kind of quickly built up that relationship because he didn't have a lot of rehearsal time because he was lighting. And then we did this rocky beach scene up in the woods, and basically it was a scene following Al, and it was in the fog, so they had all these smokers and everything, so we couldn't see anything, and it was a rocky beach going down. So what we had to shoot with was up on the ridge. We had a fixed arm crane on track, a long track, and it being armed down, so the bucket would be like way up in the air. So there was no way of doing that. So I quickly put on my little handlebars at the front of the crane, like a hand glider, just some C-stand arms coming down, triangulated it, and then just the guys pushed, and I just ran through these really slippery rocks, and I just was using the crane because you couldn't even walk basically in there. So they thought I was amazing because they couldn't walk in there, but going through with the crane, I was just jumping and just flying over the rocks and having the fucking time of my life. It's pouring rain, freezing, but I'm in a t-shirt having a blast. And they thought that's kind of what they remembered, I think. And then all of, the dance floors, and then, I just took care of all that sort of stuff because the DP was busy. And then I couldn't work in the States. The next couple of movies are in the States. And then when they went to England to do a Batman, I actually didn't get the call from them. I heard from one of the lighting guys in Vancouver. He said, hey, I heard you're going to London to do Batman. I'm like, no, I don't know. I haven't got that call. And it was 2 months later that I actually got the call for the job. I guess Wally had told them that he was going to bring me over there. Anyway, so they started bringing me over doing all the foreign stuff because, and they'd hire me as the key grip so that I could hire people that would actually work with me. That was another thing, moving into London as a little Canadian dude. English guys, they don't want some guy coming in, But I'd actually lived in London 10 years before for a year, and sort of it was kind of a failed thing. There's a long story why I was there. So it was a woman. But then I ended up leaving, and I started working in London, and then but then I split with this girl. I moved back. So 10 years later, I went back to London and got to meet all these guys that I was trying to get a job from 10 years before, which was great. So I actually had that in with the London guys. So that kind of worked out. So we did a few movies like that where I would be the camera grip, key grip in all the foreign countries. And then in the States, it was Mike Lewis, I think, did the Dark Knight in Chicago, and then Ray Garcia took over and all the American stuff.
Correct.
Until we were actually in India on Dark Knight Rises, and we'd been working down this ravine. It was like 50 degrees Celsius, which, I mean, it's the hottest I've ever been. And we just got cooked, but I went there. I prepped in London, and then it was just going to be me going to India, because it was all going to be helicopter shots. You just want to do all these helicopter shots. It's going to be maybe a dolly, maybe a shot. And then when it got closer to the time, so I wasn't bringing my English crew. It was going to be Sanjay and his guys. When I got closer to the time, they had a problem with permits for the helicopter. A lot of red tape in India. And then all of a sudden we couldn't do it. So we scrambled and got a giraffe long ranger from Hyderabad. And then Sanjay's guys came up from Bombay. And so we had to do all these, basically what were supposed to be helicopter shots in the hottest place in the world, down a ravine with a crane and a Chapman dolly. Sanjay has the only hybrid dolly that was sold off, which he paid probably like $2 million for, which is a lot of rupees. Anyway, it was like the hardest. I almost got like heat exhaustion, 30 bottles of water a day and not taking a leak, but I started cramping up. And anyway, by the end, I was up at the top of this fort with the director and his wife, and they were having a little chat about who they were going to get in Pittsburgh or something. And I sort of piped up and interrupted them, saying I was going to be in Chicago. And he was like, "Why are you interrupting me?" But his wife said, "Well, why are you going to be in Chicago?" And I said, "Well, my next movie." And then Chris was like, "What? You can work in the States?" I'm like, "No." He said, "How are you going to work there?" I said, "Well, the director, he really likes me, so he's going to get me a permit." And so he was just like, "What are you talking about?" It's like, "I've tried to do that." Like, well, I guess, I don't know, maybe you don't have any pull. And then his wife, who was the producer, said, "What movie is it?" And that's what I was saving. It was, I said, "It's Superman." And she said, "We're the producers." I'm like, "Yeah, I know." So anyway, that sort of started I was kind of just poking at him there. But then a few years later, when we went to do Interstellar, the producer phoned me, said he wanted me to do the Calgary part, and then go to Iceland, and he wanted me to do the 3 months in LA. I was like, okay, well, maybe that little conversation had something to do with it. Anyway, so I ended up getting into the union, and since then I've been able to, come down and visit you guys down there.
Yeah, that's great. And it's cool that Wally, and Wally's an old friend of mine. Wally had actually tried to get me to do Memento.
Oh yeah.
I wasn't in the union in LA yet, so I couldn't do it, and it broke my heart.
Really? Oh shit.
Yeah, years, however long ago that was. But and I keep in touch with him. But it's interesting that even though Chris Nolan, Wally doesn't shoot for him anymore. It's Hoyt now, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
On, And,
yeah, I just saw Wally. He's great. Wally's doing great now. He's just killing it in commercials and just loving it. But yeah, with Hoyt, it was, well, that's where I met Herb Alt, my good buddy, because Chris hired Hoyt, and then I got this voicemail from Hoyt saying that he's heard really good things about me, and he would very much like for me to do the next movie, and he added, and it's in my best interest to keep the boss happy, so I'm really hoping you'll do it. So obviously the director asked him, and then I was forced on Herb. So
that's
we had a couple of days at the beginning where it was figuring each other out until we had a couple of beers and chatted and told stories and became good pals.
And I usually ask everybody I talk to. Oh, look at that!
Whoa, what do we got here?
Where did that come from?
That's the photos, just sharing them.
Very nice.
That's good. No bald spot in that picture. I like it. Thank you.
Yeah, I usually ask at this point, what are some, we all have them, little tricks, little shortcuts that you use for a certain situation that not everybody might have that you've developed on your own. Do you have any of those?
Little tricks. Little tricks like.
An example, a lot of times for like if I need just one sheet of 4x8 dance floor, I'll bring in two 2x8s and slap them together just because it's easier to get them in and out of the room. So anything like that.
Basically, for like maybe for speed, I'm always trying to. It's always on a dolly, all that delicate finesse over the shoulder, the booming up and down. I always wanted to do that with. Then you have the fast shots. And it's just full on, blasting, trying to do all the fast shots, then have like finesse at the end to like bring it back to some of those shots. So I guess lots of kind of speed things like that. Like on a crane, for instance, I'm trying to think of things that people always say, "Hey, I've never seen that." Basically on the crane, what I'll do because of the weight, and I'm always trying to make myself stronger and bigger, but you can only do so many push-ups. So on the, like say the 50, we use those quick decks, but what you call parallels, the adjustable decks.
Yeah.
basically over the years, I started just using them all the time at the back, and then I could ramp them. So basically I could ramp one up so I can get a little bit more torque off one side, and then ramp one on the other side so I can slow down a little bit. And then it always brought you up. So anybody who's walking underneath the crane, it's not an issue, and you don't have to freak out. 'Cause a lot of the times you find yourself as a dolly grip going out of your mind, like being so frustrated. So basically that took that away. And then I would, from doing lots of shots with the Supernova, you put the Techno on top, sitting on that little piece of pie that you have, I'd always tie myself off to the middle, and then I'd put extra daisy chains to different sides, and I'll cinch them up. So basically I can sort of lean into it. Well, from doing months of sitting on that little platform, I got used to being able to leaning into it. So even on the ground, I would just tag myself to the column, stick it into my like a climbing harness. So with the 50, you know how you swing it, and then trying to stop it, it's going to take you forever. But if you're tied in, or then I could tie myself to one side, basically I could just wedge myself in and use my torque like a windsurfer, or and basically you can pull it in, and you can just smash the bucket right into yourself to stop, instead of just pushing yourself off the decks. So I always use a lot of daisy chains for things like that, just to give myself more leverage.
Yeah.
What have we got here?
Those are quick decks, parallels.
Yeah, those things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are the guys.
We can thank Steve Smith for those.
Yeah, he brought them up here, and then our other guy, Mike Kirilenko, bought about 1 million of them.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Money off of it.
You know, when I used to work with Steve, we'd carry 4 of those on every job, but they're exact perfect thing for a dolly grip on a crane to make a platform. You can stack them together.
I've broken probably 300 of them, because if you don't have the pins in and you're standing on it, it snaps it. So.
Oh, does it? Well, they used to have that rectangular ring around the bottom, but now the levelers are separate, so you can put one on a flat space and put one down, and
the ones with the rail at the bottom, you couldn't really angle them, whereas these ones, I just build nice ramps all the way up. I've actually used them to if you have your dolly up on risers and the grips are all, of course they're doing lighting and not paying attention, you could just ramp those, and I've just been able to like bring dollies down by myself and things like that. So they're always handy, and
they're super
we have
handy.
tons of them.
Yeah. So
it was always kind of tough in LA to try to find them, because there's not as many in LA, I found. Or
Bill Farrell has them. That's what they call parallels.
Right.
Somebody had asked if there's a link they can go to.
I got it. I'll put it on there right now.
Stabilo decks, from Germany. Yeah.
Yeah,
I got the guys years ago. I got the guys in London. They didn't have them there, but Eugene McDonough. That's another story. Basically, when I lived in London many years ago, I didn't get any work for months. There was an actor's strike, and then finally, this guy Eugene, he gave me a shot. I just volunteered at Airy Media, cleaning up his dollies, so that he would I could meet people, and he would give me some jobs, and then it started working. Went out on some commercials, and I was about to work on Star Wars, the first, in 1987, the first of the new ones. Then I split, moved back to Canada. 10 years later, when I got Dark Knight, I called him, and he'd left Airy Media, and he'd opened his own little company, Alpha Grip, which is his own rental house, which is at Pinewood. And I told him what the job was. He said, "Well, mate, that's like a big Panavision job." But I called. He was the one guy that helped me out in London. So 10 years later, I got on my bat phone. I called the Batman people and told them that I wanted to use Alpha Grip. And they said, "Oh, that's a new sort of small company." I said, "Yeah, well, all the equipment's brand new and it's state of the art, and they're really hands-on. They really want to, help me with this, and it'll probably be a lot cheaper." And as soon as they heard that, they phoned him and said, "Yeah, we're using Alpha Grip." So we rented all of his dollies, cranes, and remote heads, and then we took a second package of his gear and flew it to Hong Kong, so that when we got there, it was there. So he was pretty happy with me, and he's been with me on all the movies since, and And yeah, he was with us on. Yeah, Keith knows Eugene McDonough. Yeah. Anyway, the hell are we talking about?
we went through the parallel.
Oh yeah, parallels. Yeah. Oh, anyway, yeah. I guess that's why they didn't use them there, and I told Eugene about them, and he sourced them out from Germany, brought a bunch over, and then all the guys that I had, all the grips were fucking loving it. So the next time I came back, they were everywhere. It was great.
The first time I used them was on Contact with Steve, and the last week of the show, we carried 60 of them. And there was a shot that we did where they had to have the camera on a linear arm because Don Burgess used to love linear arms, and they had Jodie Foster on another linear arm hanging from the linear arm, and they were side by side on 3 stacks of parallels. We would crisscross them and stack them and make platforms. So we had 2 linear arms, 1 hanging the lead actress, 3 high.
Amazing. No handrails.
This is 24 years ago. No handrails.
Yeah, I know. We did so many illegal things. I mean, we don't do as many now, do we?
Only when nobody's looking.
Not as far as anybody knows. Cool. All right, Sean, you got any, or Ryan, is there anything else you would like to talk about?
I can't think of anything.
Our young Dolly grips who might be watching.
Young Dolly grips. So you sent me some questions, and it was.
Yeah. Do you want me to go through a couple of them real quick?
Oh yeah. Why don't you go through a couple?
Well, Bo Belinek is here, and I know Bo. We work together on the East Coast. He's in Savannah, Atlanta. He asked us a few weeks ago, what are some of the things you should be aware of for setting up a jib or miniscope on a driving car to moving platform, on like an e-car, either as operating the arm being strapped down with the moving platform by the, I don't understand it. What are the setups, do's and don'ts, safety, equipment, limitations kind of thing? I'm going to unmute you, Bo, and like, what do you do? And I did a bunch of it last summer myself, but I'm sure you've done plenty of it. Like, what is your protocol?
Basically, whether it's a buggy or a electric car, and you have to strap yourself onto it. They're usually small, so I will be at the back for more leverage. Same thing, I sort of, like with the Supernova, I tag myself, to the base in the middle. I'll get a couple points there, and I'll get a point, as many points, and then I'll just throw myself around, simulating the car at speed, and if it's taking off this way and taking off this way, and then I use daisy chains so I can just keep tightening it and finding it, and then basically from the bucket, I'll put a tag line down to the ground, basically to the middle, so the arm can't touch the ground in any direction, and then I'll kind of I'll always front weight it, because when you're holding onto it for a long time, if it's front weighted, it just holds up the weight of your arms, so kind of it's a little easier. And then if you let go, you got your safety, so it can just hang and not hit the ground. But it's mostly because of the laziness and not wanting to hold my own arms up in the air. So basically, yeah, just basically go through, just being as safe as you can. And I don't think there's any one way to do it. Like a lot of people, you see things when you're young and you're like, okay, that's the way to do it. And then you just stick with it all the time. You just really just common sense, just go through it and just think about everything that can go wrong. And just keep adding safety stuff until you've added too much and you have to start taking it away.
So go big to start with. Does that answer your question, Bo?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Right on.
Tynan Callison, who I believe he said he heard the story secondhand, but I'd love for you to ask Ryan how he got his break with Chris Nolan, which you explained, and why he thinks that relationship has endured for so many years, other than the fact that you're good at what you do.
Can you unclick Keith? And maybe Keith can answer this.
Yeah. Yes, I can.
Yeah, Keith, there you go, dude.
He's still muted.
Still looking for. There he is. Okay. All right. Sorry.
He's still muted.
There he is. Hi, Keith.
Yeah, he doesn't want to talk.
Yeah.
Well, I like to hear you talk. It's I was very fortunate to work on Chris's last film with Ryan. And I think that with Chris, not only you have to be good at what you do, I think that just being a good person, paying attention. I think that my relationship with Dolly grips have always been the ones that I really work well with are they're basically operators. It's like they are filmmakers. They understand the shots. They consistency. Let's see. It's I think with Chris, there's a certain amount of mental toughness and concentration, being plugged into the whole seeing the whole field. It's like working with Ryan and a handful of the other guys that I've worked with. I see your faces and stuff. It's once Chris trusts you, it's like you're a part of the family. It's like there's a certain amount of there's a vetting period of like seeing if you can do your job and seeing if you're paying attention. And Chris doesn't like to give the information's there. You just have to pay attention to get it. Am I answering it properly, or
is it? I wonder if this is a good time for me to bring up that when we were in Italy last summer, I rented a scooter, and Keith jumped on the back, and I basically rode him around Italy, and Keith was on the back of my little scooter, which is a nice moment, wasn't it?
Easy now. Well, my wife's
got some pictures. I gotta find the
No, but I think that like with Chris, it's
he gets once he gets used to, like, he's a creature of habit too. He knows what you can do, and then and he knows if you're with him or not, and he's one of those guys. He's just so, I mean, you see in the news that he doesn't like people sitting down or this and that, but he's not the type of guy to not let you sit down because he's sitting back having hors d'oeuvres and with Grey Poupon and glasses of champagne. He's like right there beside you. He doesn't sit down. He doesn't wear rain gear in the rain. He's just always with you, hands on, which is amazing working with him because it takes away so much of the other things. With us as Dolly Grips, sometimes you're dealing with an operator, and then we set it up his way, and then the DP comes in, and then you set it up their way, and then the director comes in and says, "Hey, that's not what I want." So then you just set things up so many times over and over. Or with Chris, that's all gone. He's right there beside you, and you change everything every take, and he's just there to instruct you, and it's all day, every day, every show. That's the way he is. And the other thing was with him, we do a lot of Dolly, which he liked me for as well. There's a lot of just slow moves, a lot of dance floor stuff, but he doesn't like to, he's impatient and he wants to do things fast. And there's a lot of handheld, which on the last one, it's IMAX, which is heavy with a backpack, but it's not blimped, so you can't shoot any dialogue with the IMAX. Then Keith gave me this System 65 camera, which I think with a 400-foot mag, was it 78 pounds?
It's a little over 78 pounds, yeah.
And then when the 1,000-foot mag, how much does that weigh?
That's another 15. I think it's another 15.
About 90 pounds, maybe.
Yeah, like 90 pounds, yeah.
Just the camera was 90 pounds with a 50-pound backpack, and like on Dunkirk, we shot on the ocean for like a month, just handheld, and it was those two cameras. So we would basically, with the System 65, if it's the 1,000-foot mag, I have to pick it up off of a boat, which is rocking, and then put it on Hoyta's shoulder, and then I would wrap my arms underneath his and basically straddle him. Like, it's a little bit porno. And then I'd push up on the weight, like as much as I could, and then sort of go with him as he's operating.
You had clothes on, right?
Not always, because a lot of the time it was really hot, and I work better in a Speedo. Yeah. But then with actually, it was funny. The only other interview I did was Hoyte got me to talk a little bit, an American cinematographer for Dunkirk. So he gave it over to me. So they sent me some questions, and I've never done it, and I like to goof around. So I'm doing it after work, after a couple of drinks, and I was explaining that Hoyte with the IMAX camera, the handheld, he was pretty much fine to do it himself. He could handle the weight and everything, but when it was the System 65, I would hoist it up and I'd wrap myself around. And then what I came up with as the analogy was, I said we were like two men in our mid-40s playing Twister with an old sewing machine. And that's what they used. That's what they used in American cinematographer. So they were waxing poetic about the lenses and the artistry, and then they let the grip talk, and then I say this thing about Twister, and then it goes back to his interview. Yeah, but Hoyte loved it. He told me he told that story in all of his European interviews after that. That was kind of
fun. Sean, you want to take some impromptu questions from our studio audience? You might want to wave or.
Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand. Oh, there's a couple of things I wanted to ask you about. You started talking about Revenant and being on set where it's very inclement weather, and yes, you had a lot of responsibility on your shoulders, a lot going on, but you made a point of mentioning that there were a lot of other people with equal responsibility around you. And I like the mention of being conscious of what's happening around you and other departments. And like one of my favorite things about being on set is the teamwork. Like we're not in this alone. Sometimes people need help with stuff. Sometimes you need to give way for other people. And sometimes our tasks are not nearly as critical or difficult as other ones. And I thought that was interesting that you mentioned that. And because it's true, sometimes
I always think of the boom guy or the boom person, as tough as our job can be sometimes, like what they have to do, especially on those long shots. Yeah. It's amazing. Trying to swing that thing around.
Cold.
Everybody's eye line, all the lights, trying to get all the dialogue. It's, it's hard to remember their dialogue and try to anticipate it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I try to help them out as much as I can too, definitely. Yeah. But yeah, especially on that Revenant, everybody was under the gun. The actors, just the special effects people, and it was kind of, those big wonders too on that show, you couldn't screw up because of the time factor, but also the reset time on each take was too much. A lot of the times there was tubes with blood, underneath, and then just trying to reset a body, and then everything was in the snow. So once everything's reset, the snow team has to come in and get rid of all the footprints and everything. So every time you went to do a take, and how many times you can screw up, and then when you think, I can't screw this up, like ever, I can't make any mistakes. There's one, I don't know if I should say this. Yeah, I should. There was one on Revenant where it was a 360. I think I talked about it, and it was on the track. This horse had come off a cliff and was dead. And the actor, I can't remember his name. Yeah, basically came across this horse, came back, and he was gutting open the horse and pulling all the guts around. And we came around and then pushed in and just kept moving around. And I don't have any free hands because I got the button and I've got the arm, and then the dolly's moving, so I'm really focused on it. I can't believe I'm saying this. Anyway, I came around, and then the actor takes off his clothes at the end and jumps inside the horse. And at that point, I go up and over top of the horse and then come into the slit and just look right in his eyes. So it's a full 360 around, ending up inside a horse on the eyes of the actor. But when we came around, when we did the first take and they went and saw the footage, the director and the actor came over and they said, Ryan, this is amazing, it's very good, but when you come around, if you see the actor's ass, don't film his ass. It's okay, you can stop. Just don't film his ass. Like, okay, oh, he doesn't, okay, don't film his ass. Because his ass didn't have any clothes on. So the next take, you know, we do this big shot and he's pulling out the guts and come around, but it's like, I can't screw this up. It's this slow, lyrical, beautiful move. And it came around, and when he jumps into the horse, he sticks his ass up. And it's like, how do you miss it? So they go and see the footage, and it's amazing. And then come over, and it's like, yes, Ryan, you're seeing his ass. You can just stop. But I know that the director's like saying, really, no, you don't stop, you go, you know? So on the third take, came around and the actor pulled out all these guts, and he piled them up where he knew that the camera was going to be in the way of his ass. But while we were doing it, I had my hands full, and he put all the guts in the way, but then it was going to ruin the shot because I would have had to go up and over, and it wouldn't have ruined it. So I just started freaking out and screaming at my friends to come over and move the guts before I got there. But the actor picked up on it, and he didn't break character. He just went over and he started moving all the guts and just changed his action. And we came around, and his butt came up, just went in, and I was waiting for months to see the movie, and I was just waiting to see that moment, to see if we would see it. And there it was. It just popped up, and that was my gift to everybody.
I've got an ass story.
Yeah.
I did a movie called Big Fish years ago, and there was a shot of Danny DeVito standing in the middle of a road, and he didn't have pants on either, and I was supposed to slowly boom up.
What a vision!
And and then see I forget whoever it was deep in the background, and take one. I'm thinking this is an artistic-y movie, so I'm doing the slow boom. But I get to DeVito's ass. Tim Burton says, "Cut." He comes up and says, "Look, I know what you're doing, but I don't need an artistic exploration, this loving shot of Danny's ass. So just get through it." So
just go a little quicker.
That's my ass story. Everybody's got one.
I have a really quick one. Everybody knows Bob Hall, the focus puller? Mm-hmm. You know Bob Hall? He was on Sideways, and there's the scene when Paul Giamatti goes in to take his wallet out of this guy's house, and it's like this big, huge guy, and he comes out naked, and he runs and he smashes into the car just before they take off. Well, Bob was in there pulling focus as this naked guy came and smashed into the car, and it actually, on the first take, he hit so hard that he actually broke the window with his naked body.
Boy, you never know where we're going to end up in these things, do you?
Yeah, you never know. Go ahead.
Go ahead and say what you're going to say.
I wasn't really going to say anything.
One of the things I've noticed over the past several weeks, like talking to both, you and Brad Ray, who's here, and John Mang, and Moose and George, not only are you guys really good at what you do, but you're also, very in tune on set, very easy to get along with, have a good sense of humor. What do you think the ratio is between personality and skill level on set, as far as, talking to younger Dolly grips and people trying to get ahead? Like, what do you think that ratio is? Or what suggestions would you have?
Well, a lot of people have a hard time firing a nice guy, but not always in this business. So it's definitely got to be, you're dealing with so many people on set that you can't have too big an ego, and you have to be able to let things go. They're both important. I mean, I worked for years, to develop the skills, and you remember by making thousands and thousands of mistakes. But as long as they know you're trying, and you're really, you got to remember that why you're there. We always, forget about it sometimes because we're so departmentalized. We're just thinking about building the nicest dance floor you can, to, show off to the other grips, or the key grips. And then sure, it's beautiful, and you look at it, it's like, wow, this is amazing what I did. But it took so long that we didn't get 3 other shots because, you know, you're trying to be so, you know, meticulous about things. So I think doing your part, like as quickly as you can and help other people out, because what we're really there for is to help the filmmaker make their story. We're not there to lay the best dance floor or, you know, things like that. So as long as you focus on that, and then everybody else is your teammate. I mean, it's hard because some people are difficult to deal with. Like with for me on certain jobs, like with Chivo and those guys on that one, being nice, and you had to have both, but definitely to be nice and let things like water off a duck's back. You can get screamed at like a million times, but if you don't react and you just keep okay, and you just think about the next shot and you just move right into it. At one point on the movie, Chivo said to me, "Ryan, are you a Buddhist?" Because he would say things, and I would just give him this little bow thing, and then I would go and do it, and everything was going crazy. People were freaking out, being fired, and then I was just I just didn't worry about it, and I just let it all go. I'm just thinking, you know what, next take will be good, and I'm gonna be good with it, and then I do all this. It was a couple months in when I had to tell him, no, I'm not a Buddhist. I just bullshit. Yeah. You know, so I think it's definitely both. You know, I don't think you ever get too big that you can start acting like an asshole. I mean, I've seen so many people try to do it. People get away with it, but what's the point? I mean, really, I'm there because I like it. I think it's a great job. It's like playing sports, you know. It's like being a golfer. You just one shot to the next. They're all important. It's exciting. You get keyed up before a take, or like I'm a hockey player, so when you're getting ready for the take, it's exciting. You're getting ready for action. You prep your hand on that knob or your thing. It's like you're getting ready for them to drop the puck. So it's kind of, I mean, we're so lucky with some of these creative jobs, like operating and dolly gripping and different things like that, because you can get so bored with your life and your work. But you can't get bored, or else you're going to start screwing up. So you're forced to stay in it, and I don't know, just feel really fortunate. So I don't try to let anything stress me out too much.
Does
until I
that
get
come
home and
naturally?
get really drunk and like stew about it.
Yeah. Do you naturally do you have the personality where you can naturally push that off, or do you have to work on it?
No, that took a long time, actually. That things really bothered me at the beginning. I grew up in a small town, and it was like, you know, people fought all the time. You go to the bar and everything was a fight. So it was kind of, as a young guy, we just sort of grew up that way. So, you know, confrontational, but I mean, there's so many things that you hear on set that can affect you. And I remember thinking at one point that, I mean, sure, I was successful, but I was kind of embarrassed about it because some of the things I've seen and heard, and then I didn't react or I didn't do anything. Whereas like a man's supposed to, you know, step in and do everything. But in the film business, if you're too much like that, you're not going to make it. So you have to let a lot of things go, but try to diffuse situations in a different way, I guess. And then it's just gotten easier. I mean, working on bigger jobs, I'm fortunate because on all the big features, people have generally been around for, you know, many years. So everybody's gone through all their, you know, growing pains on a lot of the smaller jobs. So we get to work. It's a lot easier to work on big features, I find, than on TV. I just go in and do a TV show, and I don't have setup time, and I've screwed everything up. And it's like, so yeah, I just feel real fortunate.
Yeah, that about covers it. You know, it's. I feel like a big part of being a dolly grip is being subject to a lot of criticism, constructive and otherwise. You know, you're kind of at the mercy of a lot of different things that are out of your control. And it took me a long time to let a lot of that go. And I think that, you know, like what you said, keeping yourself in check. And if you screw up a take or you miss, you accidentally screw your focus puller by, you know, being in the wrong place, too close or not where you said you were going to be. And it's okay. You know, that's part of the deal, and move on. And try and be of service to your camera department. You know, I've also seen guys, including myself, who've like said things that I shouldn't have said at camera and had to make amends for, you know, losing my shit. And I like.
Yeah, once you lose your shit like that, it's hard to get that back. It takes a while because it's there. It's like you can feel it. And I've gone through whole movies where you've had to deal with that. I mean, especially working with Keith Davis. He's my favorite. I love Keith.
We appreciate
that. But there's definitely those ones where you're in the hot seat and you can't. It's just really difficult. I've blown it many times, you know, and blown my fuse. But you know, walk away, have a glass of water, come on back, give it another shot. You know.
I think there's two things that I would reiterate that you actually covered, which are things that I've dealt with. There's, number one, letting things, if you blow a take lead, you got to let it go because it will make you blow the next one. And you got to be like a quarterback, you know, you throw an interception, you can't be thinking about that on the next play. You got to let it go. And that's the hardest thing for me. And also exactly what you were talking about laying the perfect dance floor and laying the perfect track and all this stuff. And it almost turns into a, you know, look guys, what I can do, you know, just, you know, gather around, you know, it turns into, you got to be careful. It's easy to fall into that trap. And I have to consciously make myself say, look, I got the job. I don't have to impress them, you know?
Yeah.
And especially with guys you never worked, or ladies or whatever you never worked with, crews you never worked with, you kind of find yourself wanting to show, okay, I know how to do this. Let me show you how good I can do it. You gotta get that out of your mind and just get the job done.
Me and Keith had one in London last summer. We were in this kitchen and the director likes things super fast. So I've just, over the years, I make the shittiest stuff. And I just was slapping this down and trying to do it as quick as possible. And we stood back and the director looked at it and he just laughed. He said, I think that's probably the most pathetic dance floor I've ever seen. And I laughed. I said, you know, it probably is. But then the shot, the actors were fighting and they smashed plates and everything. And I just drove the dolly over all the plates and all the glass and I just smashed it through everything. And then we just ripped up all the dance floor and just continued to do it. so yeah, you got to laugh at yourself, I guess.
Got you.
Well, good. Well, I don't have anything else to say except for thank you very much. I appreciate you coming on and listening to us and letting us listen.
Man, thanks for having me on. It's great to meet you guys. This is been a blast.
Anybody got anything else? Wave your hand if you got a question or comment.
No.
Criticism. One quick question. How was Estonia from Deborah?
How what?
How was Estonia?
Estonia?
Mm-hmm.
That place was amazing. Yeah. We had a blast there. They would always keep there's an old town. It's kind of like a little mini Prague where it has this old town center. And then we would finish our week on a Sunday night. And then the locals would always keep some bar open for us. And so many a night, me and Keith would be in there. And unfortunately, they just never closed. So then the sun would come up and then you were going off to some other place. So it was amazing, but I mean, it could be very difficult mornings, you know, difficult weekends. But it was great there too, because right from there, you could, on the weekend, me and Keith flew to Stockholm, you know, for the weekend, and then, or you could just take the ferry over to Helsinki in Finland. And so the day tripping was amazing. And the people are just so lovely there. We just had a blast.
Yeah, I'm Estonian, Ryan, actually, and there's a job going there in November. So I'm a camera operator. So I was kind of curious because I've never worked there and I haven't been there since I was a child before the wall fell. So I was like, just curious what it's like.
It is amazing. Keith, do you have anything else to say? I mean, we didn't have too many of Estonians on our crew, but the ones that we did were great. And like I said, socially, it was a lot of fun. They were happy we were there, and we had a really friendly crew, so everybody got along. And yeah, I wish we could do it.
Yeah, hardworking crews. Yeah. The food is amazing. Like the people, super nice people, hardworking, and I really enjoyed Estonia.
Great,
yeah,
thank you.
What a blast! Have a good time.
Yeah. Cross your fingers. I got to get the job first.
Good luck.
Luck.
There's some really good local suppliers for equipment there as well. say that.
Wick, yeah.
Sorry, what was that?
There are some really good local suppliers in Estonia. There's a guy in Alvar Kluba. I don't know if you've worked with him. He has, I think the company is High Energy Lighting or something like that. He's a gaffer out there. But there's some good guys there. I mean, if you come in with a big show, you probably were fairly self-contained, but there are some surprisingly good rental houses in Estonia and then also in Helsinki.
Yeah, we brought most. I got all my stuff from London, which I normally do, and then we brought it. And then Herb Alt brought a lot of stuff. He brought a container from LA to. So glad he was there with us. Yeah, normally I'd go off and do the European parts, and then Herb will be at home or Ray would be at home. But this time they told me about all the car mounts, and we're going to mount everything. We're going to. Somebody said, but what? Like, and there's tons of stuff, endless stuff. I thought, oh shit, I'm gonna be screwed here. And then I love Herb, and he kind of reminds me of my dad. And it kind of felt like I was a teenager again, phoning my father from the police station. Dad, can you come and help me? I fucked up. So I had that call with Herb. I'm like, hey Herb. It's like the John Wayne of key grips. Somebody once said. It's like, yeah, of course I will. Right? It was amazing. So he came for the whole run too. So I was so lucky, as a, I'm not a key grip, I'm a dolly grip. To have a guy like Herb, who's, I mean, you guys know what he's like. It was amazing.
Somebody else had a question about Robert Elswit and the IMAX. How was that?
Well, that happened right after Kelly would know, but we did the Dark Knight and Chris it was the first time they used an IMAX in a movie. And so, I mean, they got so much press, the whole Dark Knight thing and the IMAX, which Chris is always talking about. But then I think the director, what was his name again, Kelly? Brad. He wanted to do the IMAX and that. So it's basically the same thing. It's when you're doing action with no dialogue, you could use the IMAX. I mean, we've done so much of it with the Chris movies, but what do you think, Kelly?
I don't know. I wanted to hear your fondest memory of working with Elswit. I still work with him, and it's just been such a long time since we've been able to connect. I wanted to hear what your favorite memory was from the Mission Impossible IMAX experience.
Well, my favorite part was the part in Dubai when we were singing Bon Jovi drunk going down the water slides. But Robert, the movie was supposed to be in LA, and then it changed to Vancouver, and then he heard about me, so he emailed me, and I said yes right away, and he asked for recommendations for key grips, and I told him everybody's name, but then, my favorite guy, I really talked a lot about him. Anyway, he hired him, but he brought me along as the only Canadian grip to go around, but we started in Prague. I got to Prague and met Baz and Andrew Rowlands at the bar. And I mean, they're great guys. So we were having a drink and then I think it was Baz said, hey, Ryan, what do you think? Are you going to be A camera or B camera? It's like, what? I made my deal as like A camera. And I said, well, Jeff's here too. Like, who? And apparently Elswit has had Jeff Kunkel with him on like 16 movies. And the only thing Robert said to me was, oh, I'm going to bring another guy too. There's a lot of crane work. So yeah, I got this other guy. I'm like, oh, okay. But then as it turned out, I signed on and I got the money, my A camera money, but then became B camera. So the job got really fun. All of a sudden I wasn't used to getting to sit back a little bit. So I got to hang out with a lot of the Czech grips, which were great, and Joey Macaluso and Aliverdi and all the guys. So I had more time to actually socialize until we got back to Canada. And then they didn't let Jeff in. So then I became the A camera guy. But Robert was amazing. He's just so, the wit, the dry wit that he has. And he just loves to go all day too, no lunch, just keep shooting. But he's a great guy to work with. Unfortunately, I haven't worked with him again. I think he forgot about me. But
out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
Luke Erickson had a question. He wants to know how can I break into being a key grip? I'm not a working key grip person, but I had some experience from a filmmaker's camp and learned I'm good with key grip, and that's something I want to do.
Well, I would turn that over to Mike McClellan there, because he was the best dolly grip in Vancouver, and then he became a key grip, and he made room for me to become a dolly grip. So maybe Mike wants to answer that.
Here, I'll unmute him. Oops, I'm trying, Mike. Can you unmute yourself, Mike? There you go.
I think I've done that.
There he is.
Good.
There he is.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh,
You sound good, man.
yeah, frightening. Key grip. Well, there's a little more money in it sometime other than Ryan. More rentals.
Yeah.
How to get there? Gosh. Just really pay attention. You know, it's like any of our jobs. You pay attention to everyone else's job and you'll know where you need to be. And like you've all said, it's be an integral part of the team. Fill the holes when you see it.
It was hard for you to like give up the dolly, because he was such a creative sort of dolly grip, legendary in this town, and then you had to step back and watch somebody not as good as you do it while you're their boss. That must have been difficult.
Yeah, that was hard for a while, and but you know, it's such an integral part of the entire process, being behind the camera, and you have so much creative input in that position. I was lucky because I was also setting most of the flags, so I like the lighting side of it. So I could change my channel and step away from it. But every now and then I laser back to it. I miss it very much. But I've been called in a couple times to do guest appearances, and no, I do not have the chops anymore. It's been years. It's an entirely other side of my brain. I just sort of go, fuck, how does this work?
Yeah.
And but now and then I'll push one around just to go, okay, I can still remember this.
Yeah, Michael Koo says the same thing. He still misses it. He still wants to be a part of it. So Luke, yours was more about becoming a key grip, I think. And I would say, you know, there's an old joke. How do you become a key grip? You get somebody to hire you as a key grip. Boom, you're a key grip. You got to start at the bottom. Learn it all. Learn lighting, learn rigging, learn dolly. There's a lot to learn, a lot. And you can't learn it in a year or 2 years. You know, bottom line.
Not everybody can fake it like me.
Yeah, like all of us.
I don't have to do I never had to do any of the lighting with all my key grip jobs either. So I didn't even have to use lens flags, which is nice.
We don't set those anymore, really. We just like the flares now.
You like flares.
Yeah.
I'll put a flag up, and then the DP will say, take it out. I worked forever to get that flare. So I don't even bother anymore. But yeah, Luke, I think learn it all. Lighting takes a long time. You know, learn how to do it takes a long time. Learn how, you know, and you just work your way up a little bit on one step at a time.
Well, I think we should call it a day here, don't you think?
Oh yeah, sure.
Well, thank you everybody for being here. Daryl, do you have anything else you want to say?
Somebody, and I can't remember her name, had a question about the color of the wall behind me. I tried to dig the paint can out. I can't find it, but my wife swears it has the word raisin in it, like rum raisin or something. So there's a clue. I think it's a Sherwin-Williams shake.
Thanks, Daryl. It was me, Deborah.
Oh, hi, Deborah.
Thank you.
I looked for that paint can. I could not find it. But
it's bless your heart. Thank you so much. I'll find it based on Sherwin-Williams and raisin.
Raisin, yeah. Thanks, everybody. I got to go take care of some house crap.
Okay.
But, thanks, Ryan. Pleasure to meet you, David.
Thanks so much for having me on. It's been great meeting everybody and seeing old friends and making some new ones, and hopefully we see you again.
Hope so. Keith Davis, thank you for your input, and Wick and everybody. All right, we'll see you guys around.
Bye. See you, Ryan. Guys. Take care. Bradway. See you.
Later.